Hey everybody. So I'm actually I'm just getting home from the appearance on the Tamron Hall Show, and I'm not doing this one as a Facebook Live because I figure I figure this isn't connected to the show, but just some of the reactions after the show. I had on that I had on that blue shirt, a few of my shirts. I ordered a few shirts just to have a few shirts, and I'm trying to see how they look. So I figured two birds with one stone. I wanted to talk about some things, but also I wanted to see how this worked out. So a friend of mine, Angela, who is actually the editor on our book for hire audition, um, she said that she had seen something in connection to our appearance on the show, where it was a couple of people talking about me and Antoinette and Pace and Chrissy being on there, and they said something to the effect of yeah, wow, he's stacking up a bunch of women and they all know about it. That's weird. And she's got a bunch of dudes and they know about it, and that's interesting. It probably would make more sense, or it'd probably be easier if they just stepped out on each other without telling one another. And I want to talk about that. The arms are a little tight on arms are a little tight on this one, so this one might go back. I'm a big guy. I need big shirts. So I want to talk about that because that's sort of the thing that gets normalized in these conversations. When you looked out into the crowd, when we were at the show, and you looked out into the crowd, you could see a bunch of shocked and surprised faces, and there were people. We had some friends in the crowd who had heard some people saying some, not so nice things. And it's okay, but how many of those folks were cheating? And how many of those folks felt normalized or justified in cheating, whereas we're the weirdos for being honest about it, So that's sort of what we're fighting for in terms of representation and being visible, and being on TV is always sort of a weird thing. Not I've been on, being in media is always sort of this weird thing because a lot of times I just want to be chill and quiet at home, and if I wanted to, I could just be chill and quiet at home. But also our visibility is important because right now somebody's got to be having that conversation with their partner who they're thinking of cheating on, or somebody's got to be having that conversation with a partner they're already cheating on. This one fits a little better. I wish this one had arrived before. I would have wore this pink on the show. But that's sort of what we're fighting for. Chrissy and myself, and definitely to some extent Antoinette and Pace. But Chrissy and I, we actually make work out of that. That we are trying to make things normalized. We're trying to make things boring, to use Chrissy's words. I don't call it boring, but but I get what she's saying. So another thing is another thing that popped up was I saw somebody online saying I can't imagine that because I can't imagine having a relationship like that because I don't even want to know about my husband's exes. Even though we've been together for 20 years and it's been decades since he dated them or saw them or met them or what have you, I don't even want to hear about that stuff. And I'm you might want to unpack that, because if you're still getting bent out of shape over the idea that your husband had a life before you, you might want to think about why you feel that way. You might want to think about why you feel that way and try to figure out what can it would be a benefit to you, and it would be a benefit to your relationship if you unpacked your feelings about some people who haven't existed in your partner's life. Yeah, this is feeling a little, I don't know. I'm gonna button it down, but I don't know. If that's where you're at in terms of people who haven't been in your husband's life for decades, you might want to unpack that because you might get some valuable insight that benefits your relationship. And that's something. There's a lot that monogamous folks can learn from polyamorous folks, and polyamorous folks already know that because since so many of us are already tied into like monogamous structures by way of family and pop culture and what have you. But like in terms of modeling, but the kind of processing, the kind of emotional literacy, the kind of communication, the kind of scheduling that polyamorous relationships thrive on, I'm going to keep it. I like it. I just kind of like it. So I'm going to keep this one. The kind of stuff that polyamorous relationships thrive on are benefits to everybody's relationships, you know? And not everybody gets that. Where if I'm in a monogamous relationship and my partner does something that upsets me, I don't have to ask the question, why does this upset me? Instead, what I can just do is say, hey, don't do that thing anymore. And because it's just us, they can just sort of write it out of the script of what they do. And then I can go on without confronting why I felt that way. Which is a shame, because whatever it was that upset me is probably emblematic of something else that we're not talking about. Whereas in polyamorous relationships, that's sort of a thing that has to be. Where if my wife does something with some other partner and I feel some sort of way about it, it's like, all right, well, I got to think about that. I got to stop and talk about that. Like I got to talk about that with my wife, or I got to talk about it with myself, or with a therapist, or I've got to find a support network and say, like, where is this feeling coming from, and then process it and figure it out and see like how much of this is a legitimate problem that needs to be addressed, and how much of it is just me being up in my feelings. There's a lot of stuff like that monogamous relationships can benefit from, things that polyamorous relationships really need and thrive on. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, talk about that for a second. Thanks to everybody who supported the show and our appearance on the show. Thanks to everybody who shared around all the links and blasted our appearance. Like Tamron Hall even said it on the show. Like, y'all been blowing up my Twitter for three days. Yo, blow up Tamron Hall's Twitter for 3 more days. Get me back on there, because we didn't have a lot of time to really talk about the stuff we wanted to talk about, and like stuff like this. Like, these are the kind of details that like sort of that people would have gotten a lot of value out of. And granted, I think people got value out of what we did on there, but it would have been awesome to have more time. Would have been awesome to talk about more stuff, and I'm down to do that here as well. So if you have any questions, if you have any things you want to talk about, bring them up, shout them at me, support my Patreon, support the books that I'm writing. I'm going to link all that stuff in here. And yeah, rock on.